So I landed in the Chicago O'Hare Airport in US, and as I watched my 330 kilo bags come on the luggage carousel, I for the first time realized that I was truly on my own. No one was going to help me. I somehow lugged those bags off the belt, and I think I was very lean, probably weighed around 40 kilos or something back then. So somehow I struggled to pull those bags off, put that in my cart, and took another 3 or 4 hour bus ride to the town of Champaign. And I think I had no clue about what the life is going to be like. I was very excited to go to such a popular university and study in such a place, but beyond that I really did not know what lies ahead. For example, what will I do after masters? How long am I going to live in US? What kind of friends am I going to make? I had zero clue, and probably this will be the case with you also. So in this video I'm going to talk about the things that I really struggled with or made me depressed in the US. Now I'm not making this to scare you off, but I know that you will face some of these things yourself, so I want you to be more mentally prepared for it. Let's go. And the first thing that really depressed me was the superiority complex of the American officers. So when you land in US, you have to stand in the queue to get your immigration stamp on your passport done. Now US has, I think, removed this requirement a few years ago, but back in my time, you have to get your passport stamped when you used to enter US. So I was standing in this queue and I watched an elderly Indian lady in front of me. She went up to this officer and I think she was visiting her kids in US or something, and she did not really understand English well at all. So instead of helping her out or at least treating her with basic dignity, I saw this American officer making fun of her, like, using English words so that she will keep saying what I don't understand, and then this officer will look at his fellow officers and they will smile. So that really annoyed me. I could sense that these officers really had that superiority complex in them, and they would look down upon all these passengers from India or other developing countries. Now you will, as an immigrant, you are going to face these situations where you will be looked down upon just because you are from a different origin, and it may not be as bad a case as extreme racism that you see sometimes in UK, Australia or other European countries, but in America you still see I saw this tendency of superiority in at least in some American officers. Overall, I found Americans, they were still very open and friendly towards international students. But yes, some of those cases were really bad. And a tip here I would say is that always remember that world is full of good and bad people. They are everywhere. So don't let a few of these experiences develop a prejudice in you. And other thing is, I used these experiences to remind myself that I will never act like this person. And whenever the need arises, I used to step up for my fellow Indians or even other communities and supported each other. So I feel use these experiences as a way to develop more humility and integrity in yourself. And the good news is India is doing extremely well, and I see this massive boost in the confidence of Indian people. I see young students nowadays and I'm amazed at how well they are doing, how confident they are feeling. So massive kudos to all the countries who are doing well and establishing their identities. So yes, there would be some experiences like this. Don't let them throw you off guard. Second thing I want to talk about, and this may sound funny, is cooking. So cooking has never been my passion. I like to do it sometimes out of choice, but I don't like to do it every single day. Now, when I was there, I could not afford to or didn't want to eat out every single day, right? So I would cook on my own mostly. And this was a terrible experience mostly because I was so used to getting good home cooked food by my mom because I had always lived at home before then. So it was a new experience for me. It was quite a sad feeling to know that there was no one to cook for you, even on the days when you have exam, when you're rushing for something, and sometimes when you come back home from the lab, you're really tired but you have nothing to eat. You still have to make basic dal chawal or something. I never used to make rotis, by the way. So it was a very sad and lonely feeling. So these home chores, some basic stuff that we take for granted in India, when you have to do them as a graduate student in US, they can make you really feel nostalgic. So my tip here is, first of all, don't be too stingy, okay? hai. Like spend a little, eat out once in a while, because firstly it gives you comfort and secondly it relieves a lot of stress, which I feel is very important, right? And at any cost, don't try to convert US dollar to Indian rupee, because you will not be able to eat, because no one wants to eat like a $5 Subway sandwich, which is what, like 400 rupee, right? So I think the problem with me was I was a bit too cost conscious, and so I should have spent a little more on basic comfort things, because they give you such a peace of mind and are so happy for your, so required for your overall well-being, so spend a little more on basic things and don't make yourself miserable. Third point has to be about the winters, right? So I was so excited to see my first snow at UIUC, but I had no clue what I was up for. Once it started snowing, it would continue snowing for the whole night and then most of the next day, and then suddenly there would be like, knee deep snow. You have to walk through it. The walk itself to the university would become like a torturing experience, especially with all that wind blowing across your face. So the average temperatures in January, I think they ranged from like -5, -6 degrees Celsius, and I was absolutely never enjoyed it. It was a very bad experience for me. That is when I realized that I'm not a cold person at all. And even when I moved to NYC, which was overall warmer, the lower temperatures were not as harsh, but then there was the wind factor, and especially when you're walking in those road in Manhattan, right? Because the wind blows extremely harshly through those small roads in between the buildings. So the overall feels like temperature used to be still quite low in New York. So somehow I have lived mostly in the cold places in US, and if I had a chance to, I would definitely choose something warmer or try to live on the West Coast. And my tip here is that if you're going to such a wintry place, then invest in good jackets. Even though I bought like expensive 2-layered Columbia jackets, I used to anyways shiver. I felt like leather gloves are very good. So invest in good quality clothing if you're going to such states. And if you are fundamentally not a cold person, then avoid Midwest, avoid East Coast kind of places and choose places like Florida, Texas or California. That's going to be so much better for your overall mental health, because the issue is not the cold only, right? What used to happen was it used to get dark around 4 p.m. itself. So imagine I'm walking out of my lab and suddenly it's like, it's gray and it will become dark. So it happened in my second semester, which was the spring semester. In January and Feb were so cold that by the time Holi came, I was so depressed by the lifestyle there that I started crying one day, and I'm quite embarrassed to admit this now. But yeah, it can get pretty tough and it's depressing. It's literally depressing. So if you are concerned about your mental health and things like that, if you think you're overtly sensitive to these things, then please take this factor very seriously when you're choosing which school to go to. Fourth thing I want to talk about is that constant out of the place feeling that you have. So here's the harsh truth. As a first generation immigrant, you never truly belong anywhere, and you know this deep down in your heart that you don't belong anywhere, because you are too Indian for US people to accept you as their own, and after a few years you become too Firang for people back in India. So you are neither here nor there, and you will know what I'm talking about after spending a few years in any country abroad. So because what happens is you're going out with your American friends, you don't understand most of their slangs that they're using. You're not used to those things, and when you come back to India, you are treated like a guest. Your old friends have moved on in their lives and your social circle overall starts thinning down, right? So this is some of the feeling that leads to this constant isolation feeling in your head, and you question yourself, where do you truly belong? What is home for you? Because living in a place and feeling like home are two very separate things. So here's my advice: start making friends in US from day one. Develop your own social circle. Be open to meeting new people. When you get invited to a party or a group event or something, even if you don't want to go, still go, because you will meet people. And some people think that, oh, first they will earn a lot of money, buy a house, and then they will think they can survive just by their families alone. But someday you will need friends who you can call at midnight if there is an emergency situation with you. And it's very hard to make friends later on in life. So that is the biggest advantage of grad school, that it exposes you to so many different opportunities, experience, adventures, and people. So make use of that. Be social. Even if you're an introverted person, it will take you some effort to go out and socialize, but you must do it. And you should not feel that one day suddenly you are going to build friends. It's very hard there. So from day one, come up with this mindset, help out other people, so that when you need help, people are already there. And this is one of the mistakes I see many Indians making. They mingle only with other Indian people or something like that, and they think they can survive on their own. But think of the long term. You have to live your whole life in US, maybe your next generation too. So you start building those social roots in that country, so that you have people to call of your own when required. Next difficult thing was the overall lifestyle in US and the difficulties that your parents face in adjusting to it. So my father was in a government job, and unfortunately my parents could never visit me in US. And honestly, I did not push them much either, because I somehow knew that they would struggle in US. They may not fundamentally like this kind of lifestyle. So it's okay if your parents are visiting you for short duration, because then you can take them around, show them around places or something. But let's say some parents visit for 3 months or 6 months at a stretch, then it's a very different kind of trip, because you are continuing with your job or school. You are gone for most of the time, and they are stuck at home. And if they are not comfortable moving around on their own, then they are just dependent on you for any kind of socializing, and it becomes very difficult and lonely experience for them. So one of my friends was in Virginia, and her mom would visit her. Now she had this day job, so she would go, and it's all these suburban places, or at least non-New York, non-San Francisco places, they are very sparsely populated. So you see very few people out there. It's mostly empty, and especially in bad weather like cold or winter, etc., when it gets dark very soon, it can become very depressing. So her mother really struggled. She would feel really miserable and sad there, but at the same time she wanted to be with her daughter. So both of them wanted to be there, but at the same time they could not make peace with it. So I felt that was a very sad situation, and that is the case with a lot of parents I see. Now there are exceptions. Some families are extremely open-minded. Some parents are very outgoing, and they feel, okay, we are going to go for a walk, maybe we will make our own friends, we will go for grocery shopping or something. But some people, especially if they are not comfortable with English as a language or something, or they are more shy or reserved, then those parents tend not to socialize, and being stuck at home all the time is not a good part for them. So I've seen this kind of even tension getting created in some of the NRI families, because you cannot be happy together, but you're also not happy when you're away. So you want to spend time together, but you're not able to. So just watch out for those kind of things. Understand what your parents like or not, and then try to design their vacation trips or experiences accordingly. There are many other things culture shocks that rattled me, and I struggled with some of those things, but I'm not going into the details of all those things. So these were mainly the points I saw very closely in US that made me feel discomforted, is what I would say. So in the end, I feel like living abroad is a phenomenal, absolutely mind-opening experience, and growth comes only when we push ourselves out of our comfort zone, right? So it's going to be frustrating, it's going to be depressing, it's going to be annoying at times, but that is the price we pay for growth. And I'm not talking just about financial or professional growth, I'm talking about personal and spiritual growth as well. As I said, my objective today is to make you aware of some of the things that can rattle you there, that can make you feel depressed. I take mental health very seriously. So overall, this transition of India to US is a big leap, and it can shake some students up. So if you at all see any kind of signs of depression or mental struggles, then please consult a therapist and do whatever is required to feel comfortable so that you can continue your life there. I wish you the very best. Please share your feedback and thoughts in the comments below and stay subscribed, because I will see you with a fresh new video next week. Take care. Bye bye.